I still think we can do it, but I also see the difficulties that which were not told to us at the beginning when we did the vote. David Cameron, I think, did the dirty on us, really. He's just like a naughty boy who needs his bottom spanked.
And I couldn't agree more. We're back with more people regretting their vote for Brexit. I want to say a big thank you to all of our supporters.
The way they keep on and on and on about it, I think you'd be better just staying as you are, staying in.
Really? Blimey. What, is that to say you changed your mind?
Well...
Let's have a look and see what they're saying in Spain.
I think quite a few of them are thinking more of how it's affecting them on a daily basis, which it's been quite hard. It's not a great thing for the way it's been managed and turned around. It's making life difficult for expats. And I think that a lot of those are regretting it, even to the point where most of the friends that I have that I know voted to leave because I was with them on June 23rd, 2016, and jumping up and down that they won, they're now saying, no, I voted to leave, I voted to remain, I vote to stay. And very, very few that actually voted to leave are now admitting it. They're embarrassed by the way that it's been handled. They couldn't have anticipated how badly it's affected them.
It's Project Fear Mark II. It should be utterly, completely, totally disregarded.
Some of that is just pure ignorance. They didn't realise that living in a foreign country without this free passage and whatever was going to be slightly more difficult. You'd have to fill forms out to do things as any other foreigner would. But also, I think some of it is just down to bad management by the Spanish and English governments, who haven't made it so easy for people to move and work in Spain as maybe England has made it for the Spanish to live and work in England. And there's a bit of resentment, maybe. So they're looking slightly more foolish than they hoped. And I'm amongst them. I could never have anticipated it would be this hard, and that the governments would have been so incompetent.
It boggles my mind that they actually thought that someone like Boris Johnson would be able to do a decent deal. That boggles my mind. Have a listen to this about the 350 million on the bus going to the NHS from Nigel Farage.
The £350 million a week we send to the EU, which we will no longer send to the EU, can you guarantee that's going to go to the NHS?
No, I can't.
Did you vote in the referendum yourself?
Yes.
How did you vote?
This is my personal question. Yes, I did vote for Brexit.
You voted for Brexit?
Yeah. I changed my mind. What? We have been said we will gain 350 million and so much of jobs, and we can take back our control.
Well, they were telling you lies.
They were telling, but we believe it.
A land of milk and honey, golden streets, a golden age for Britain. Here's an interesting piece of regret about the 350 million on the bus by Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I did not, as it happens, like the £350 million figure.
What about Brexit? How do you think that's going?
I voted for it, but I'm wondering whether it was the right decision now.
You're feeling a slight regret?
Yeah, because the way it was put forward, it was sort of all one way, wasn't it?
What, all that extra money getting spent on the health service?
Yeah. I think there's a lot less positives than there seemed to be.
I don't know how many people voted on the basis of that advert, but that was a huge part of the propaganda. You're now saying that's a mistake?
We have a £10 billion a year, a £34 million a day featherbed.
Except we don't, because we've lost that 12 billion on covering all the costs that have been made as a result of exiting the EU, but that hasn't even covered the cost in just October alone, which lost 12 billion in trade in 2021. So we can already see there's an amount of regret over all this. Let's have a listen to Cummings.
Questions like, is Brexit a good idea? No one on earth knows if that's what the answer to that is.
And this is the greatest moment of history in modern Britain.
And I think that outside we can be a prosperous, liberal, free trading nation, and that is the best thing for our generation.
But you've just said today, even you are still not sure if Brexit was a good idea.
I think anyone who says they're sure about questions like that has got a screw loose.
I thought he was going to shit. Pow, Pete.
Whether you're on the Remain side or our side, I think one of the reasons why we won is precisely because in Vote Leave we didn't think that we're definitely right and Remainers are all idiots or traitors or anything else. We never thought like that then and still don't, and I don't now. I think it's perfectly reasonable to say that Brexit was a mistake, and that history will prove that. Of course, it's reasonable for some people to think that.
Even the news reporter at the time was quite flabbergasted with those comments. Let's go over to Northern Ireland and see what was happening over there.
The Northern Ireland Protocol doesn't know what it's doing at the moment, so we can't ship any parcels to Northern Ireland because everything gets rejected. And it's the same in most of Europe. As soon as it lands in France, it just gets sent back.
He's bought £300,000 worth of bees from Italy and is now planning to import them via Ireland and Northern Ireland. Is he allowed? Well, it's a grey area, and Patrick says government isn't giving him a straight answer.
It sounds like a bit of a punt, though.
It is a punt. I don't have any choice. I've got £300,000 worth of bees that I've got to pay for. What do you want me to do with them? We're going to drive them to France somewhere and just let them go?
It's about the fruit farms that need them for pollination. No bees, no fruit, lots more imports from Europe.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, go on.
Go on, a few years back, when you were asked remain or leave.
I left. Yeah, absolutely.
Is this quite how you imagine Brexit panning out?
Nothing like it. It was nothing like the promise that we was given. No, we were bid sold down the river.
And the question to that is why? Why was this so popular, and why was it so easy to get the country to follow this? The video I'm going to show you now gives a bit of an explanation to this, but it's deserving a video which I will be doing later. So in my search for some regrets, I came across a man named Charlie from Wigan, and he comes up with some really interesting insights about why people voted to leave and why people are now turning around and regretting to leave.
Doing very well, but it's a universal credit rollout area. I've been on it about 5 months. I'm living for 19 days off no money.
Jesus. How come?
When I went on it in November, I had to take out £600 for that 5-week finger. So I'm paying that back for 540. I've got to pay £425 my rent and about £50 for my electric. You're left with about a tenner.
6th richest country in the world, and we can't support people who pay in to the welfare system in case stuff like this happens. National insurance? And the situation is so bad that charities are having to be set up to provide food for people, including children. Yet the government seemed completely oblivious to these things, even when the United Nations comes in and has to start providing food for citizens.
I think it's a real scandal that UNICEF should be playing politics in this way, when it is meant to be looking after people in the poorest, the most deprived countries in the world, where people are starving, where there are famines and where there are civil wars, and they make cheap political points of this kind, giving, I think, £25,000 to one council. It is a political stunt of the lowest order. But what has this government done about child poverty? We are committed to our manifesto pledge to reduce child poverty. We've expanded free school meals to all 5 to 7-year-olds, benefiting 1.4 million children. We doubled free childcare for eligible working parents and will establish a £1 billion childcare fund, giving parents the support and freedom to look after children. We're spending £400 million of taxpayers' money to support children, families and the most vulnerable over winter and through 2021. Since 2010 to 2018-19, there are 100,000 fewer children in absolute poverty in this country. This is a record of successive conservatism, and UNICEF should be ashamed of itself.
Of course, he completely ignores the fact that it's 2017 and there are 100,000 children, and there are more out there in abject poverty, thanks to the Conservatives from 2008 to current day.
You're left with about a tenner to live off for a month.
And what's the nature of your disability, excuse me asking?
I had polio when I was born.
The last time you worked, what did you do?
I was team leader at Asda 18 years. I was made redundant, and I thought, with my CV, I thought I was going to walk straight into a job. But I'm applying for jobs, and there's 1,000 people applying for that job.
So it's interesting, at this point, there are a few jobs, and it seems like everyone's applying for them at the same time. It seems like Wigan's going through a really tough time at this point.
Did you vote in the referendum 3 years ago?
Yeah, I voted to leave.
So that's one reason. Have a listen to another reason that Charlie gives.
You must have heard this 1,000 times. People say that when we leave, the country will be even poorer.
No. Well, how can I be poorer?
And that's another marker. That's another cause, that's another reason. How can he be poorer when he's this destitute? There's no welfare system, and there's no investment going up north.
You don't think you were had, that you were lied to?
I do think we were lied to, because they have that big, you can't find that red bus now in London. That's gone missing.
I wonder where that bus is now.
But if I put a ballot paper in front of you now, with all you know now, with Leave or Remain on it, you'd still vote for...
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm just shocked. How can it not get worse for him though? For some, I'm in no doubt they wanted to give a bloody nose to the government because they'd done nothing to help the North. What I also find interesting is that Charlie didn't want to change his vote, was stuck with that position and wasn't going to move. However, he gets in contact with the programme 6 months later and they meet up.
I went for a job and it was advertised as full-time, 40 hours. And it was an agency.
So he works for 2 weeks, but then after that, Charlie seems to get text after text after text telling him there was no work available. And because it's a 0-hour contract, they can cancel this work at any point. If this was a part-time contract, then he'd be guaranteed those wages, which means he's able to budget instead of this.
How can you even budget through the week?
Can't budget during the week.
There's a part of me going, there are so many historical parallels with this. We could go as recently as the 1930s, you could go back even further, you could even put that towards explaining the rise of someone like Donald Trump, but essentially the problem is, there is such abject poverty that they'll listen to anyone trying to give them a solution. And if it sounds like a simple solution, such as getting rid of people coming into the country, or stopping more people coming into the country, that'll solve your problems. People will go for it, and that has been shown time and time again throughout history. Charlie then goes into detail about what he's doing in order to survive and the diet that he's on, which is essentially using processed milk powder, potatoes, carrots, some form of mincemeat which he mixes in with pastry. He then goes on to describe what he does to conserve energy.
All I'm doing now, and I don't want to be a martyr, I'm just eating to stay alive. I didn't go out of the house for 3 weeks, no appointments on my phone, so I stopped in the house. Because if you're moving about, it burns what you've eaten in the morning, it burns it off.
As well as describing how he's got into $2.5 grand's worth of debt, and unfortunately he's received a letter from the landlord.
You are required to leave the below address after the 4th of October 2019.
So we've seen Charlie go from a position where he was already in a bad situation, followed the instructions of getting a job, and ended up in a worse situation than he was to begin with. Have a listen to what he says about that.
I'm not a suicidal person, but I can understand where people, I mean, I've not got mental health issues yet.
But you want Brexit to happen?
Well, I wanted to leave. The leave what I wanted has been twisted.
If there was a ballot paper in front of you now with Leave or Remain, which one would you?
I'd just pick Remain.
Would you?
Just for all this to stop.
Unfortunately, it isn't going to stop. There are going to be further complications and the economy is going to struggle. It'll be interesting to see how they change the economy. It seems as if the government is going in a services direction and high-tech direction. However, we're not seeing the investment needed across the country, both in education, nor in welfare, or in other key areas that people need support in the meantime. It was also fascinating to see someone who clearly and staunchly went for leave and sort of went on it on 2 occasions, both in the vote and then during the documentary, only 6 months later to change that position. Yet time and time again you'll hear Brexiteers claim this is all hokum and it's all made up and these aren't real people. That is as real as it gets, but also showing the real causes behind this, and I will be doing another video on it. I hope you enjoyed my political observations this week. If you'd like to support me, please share the video with others and post about it on social media. If you're keen for more, subscribe, comment, like, and hit that notification button. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Political X.